Doug will be right back. Oh, here comes John. Just in time, John. I was going to start without you.
Can't do a legal review without you.
I was going to go out of order. But since you're here,
We don't know what it's about, do we?
That's right.
we will let you start, John.
Nothing like another good book to read.
There you go. It's your bedtime reading.
So I think what we're going to talk about is a way to finance and a choice that we'll have working with FIDA for the next maybe 5 years on things like infill. And I just want to take you through the steps that we do as far as what we're required by the code. First of all, to get it, and then the options on financing. And we'll probably turn it into a situation where we kind of have a cookie cutter form after we do this a couple times here. Kevin Franklin was sort of the prototype as far as an infill. We did acquire the property. We could be doing that whether we do it as a 657A, a 6B condemnation purchase, somebody just deeding it over to us because they can't manage it and it's a nuisance situation that we have in one of two other methods that we use in magistrate court. But any of those ways that we get it, once we own it, code says we can't just give it away. We have to either give it away for a purpose like economic development or remedying blight or a clear public purpose. So what we do, we make a determination by the council. We do a resolution that says we have determined we don't need it in our inventory of real estate, that we want to dispose of it. We have to then put a notice in the newspaper. And after we put a notice in the newspaper, we have to have a public hearing about it. And that's just basically what I call the vacating step. After we've done that part of it and we're ready to transfer it, if someone's made us an offer, that becomes part of the notice in the newspaper. We go ahead, we pass a resolution after we've had a public hearing, and we determine we're going to deed the property over to that person for whatever they're willing to pay us for. Or maybe they're not going to pay us for it. Maybe they're going to do a development agreement with us and they're going to put something on it that we think is just as valuable. But that's the first side of this. That's what I call the acquisition and vacating and disposal with public hearing side. Once we get through that, depending on who's going to be involved in the financing. Right now, FIDA's been through a couple different infill lots, one on 7th and one on 6th Street, that they have prison industry type housing that will come on to those properties and it will improve the property. So the next thing that is coming, and I don't know exactly what they're intending as far as whether it's going to be triplexes, duplexes, single-family dwellings like the other infills previous, but they've got the 3 lots agreed to by the council. We've already been through the acquisition resolution on that over behind Logan. At this point, they have something going on with some of the different factory heads and some of the people in town that we know to be willing to do charitable donations. One of the donors has done various things in our parks and for the Park and Rec facility, and we expect they have an interest in doing more of that. So they have some choices, though. If we agree that they make a gift, there is something that some people misunderstand, but In fact, there's a discussion going on right now with FEDA looking into having a separate form of housing trust foundation operated by Grow Fairfield FEDA. And that would be a 501c3 rather than their 501c6 status. They are a business league organization, but they don't have to pay income tax as long as they do public purpose related things over at the Development Association. But that's on a case-by-case basis as far as what their project is and so forth, so that's between them and their accountant every year as far as how they deal with it on their nonprofit 990. If they set up something separate, that might get used in the future, but if they don't set up something, we're still an entity that is a nonprofit always. Chapter 170 of the Internal Revenue Code, 170A and 170C, and part of 170E all basically say that a person can make a donation for a public purpose to the municipal or any other governmental division or subdivision. So we're definitely a government subdivision as a municipality. If they do that as a 170 gift, it qualifies just like a 501c3 gift. At that point, the donor will be looking to us to basically flesh out the gift, do some documenting, have some things of public record that you can point to. And so the other part of our process, which we will be going through here in the next couple of council sessions, is you'll have a notice of our agenda showing that there is consideration of acceptance of, and then the donor, when I say they have a little choice, they can decide if they want to gift us flat out money to pay for the Grow FEDA lots at Logan, or they can basically take title to the lots and make the lots an in-kind contribution. And there's a different form and format for each of the types of gifts, which it's just another paragraph that'll be different in the resolution you get. But a particular donor may want to do it differently, and some of our donors may want to have the advantage of that giving us the lot outright to start with. So case by case, we don't know how it's going to work yet, but we do anticipate that one of the things we're going to try to do year after year for a few years into the future is look around town, find places where there's a lot that's in need of improvement. Once the improvement occurs, I'm just going to call it the infill cookie cutter. Will take over, and you'll have a hearing, you'll have a determination about the kind of gift that you're going to accept. There are some things in our resolution that indicate we will be giving back a verification of the gift that we've received. In this situation, the first go-round, you'll be acknowledging that the city's benefited by $25,000 under 170, and that the donor is entitled to a deduction. There's still some detail that I don't know exactly yet. I've talked to Ed Malloy about the options, and he wants me to do some more talking with the donor in this particular situation. But we're going to have donors, I believe probably at least 3 of the plants in town will have some kind of a family planned donation to us every once in a while for these infill lots or for things that have to do with our new subdivision development. And each time that happens, you'll all see something that looks like this. And there may be some discussion out in the community, there always is on social media, about whether we're doing it right or not. I invite you to have a conversation with the people that do the 990s for FIDA. That would be TDT. But it's something that other groups around town also will recognize as it's okay to give to the government instead of the private foundation or the private nonprofit. You're probably going to see this happen occasionally with the museum foundation versus somebody giving to the city. But we've had it both ways. We've had other people that have left us a bequest to the city in the city's name rather than doing it through the museum foundation. So going around the ring, we've got about 20 foundations in the community. You're going to see every once in a while that somebody wants to do the city gift as a 170 instead of the 501c3s or one of the 501cs that qualifies. So I'm not trying to complicate this with tax code numbers and things like that, but once we go through one of these on this type of an infill project, Kevin Franklin's was almost too good to be true. Kevin's was basically donated to us because he admitted he couldn't take care of it. He was overjoyed the way he was treated in the situation. Not everybody that we're going to involve on these is necessarily going to be overjoyed on the way we acquire the lot, but I'm expecting that the people that do the charitable contributions to help go ahead with improving it or making sure that a group that can improve it gets it, that will probably be what you run into as far as questions in the community. So we definitely are a correct entity and institution to receive gifts like this. I would expect we may have some more situations where you see a gift of $25,000, $35,000, somebody that wants to boost what we've got going on in the infill areas. And then I would expect we're going to have some gifts that are greater than that related to the subdivision development. So, questions? I was going to hand you out some tax forms and stuff, and then I thought, no, nobody really at this time of the year wants to look at another tax form. So, but if you have questions, this is something that every year somebody asks me, can you really get a deduction given to the city instead of a 501c3? And you really can. You really can. So that we just have to make sure we document it well and first go through on this thing where we've got $25,000 coming in, and we're going to have a set of the things, so make sure that you all can picture how that could work again and again.
So I'll just mention, John, that Doug and I have worked on a document, kind of a flow chart. I mean, he started it, we're refining it, and I think once we get it further along, it'll kind of explain all of those steps that you talked about and all the steps that council will want to take, depending on what the situation is, which direction we go and that kind of thing. And so that'll be coming.
All right. Good enough. Okay.
Alrighty.
That's all I got.
Yes.
I do want to ask, and I don't want to go down a rabbit hole or anything, but will you discuss the difference between 657A, are the advantages to us between 657A and eminent domain? If it's public good that we're acquiring the property for, and we can't seem to get a 657A in process, is eminent domain a option?
Well, yeah, eminent domain, let's just codify, that's 6B of the code. And we've used that for a number of things. The water, deep well, the airport, the Walton Lake area, we had some things out there we took.
I know it's always been for
The sewer
public.
project,
I know it's always been for
easements and
public
things,
projects,
yeah.
but can it be, I mean, since on our strategic plan and everything, the need for housing is something that's
You can
priority to
use it
us.
for that public purpose. If you're 6B, the process is always going to involve double appraising and then making an offer for the best of the two appraisals. And basically, we have to do it after we make a finding that we need to do this. In other words, a resolution of necessity. And the resolution of necessity can be challenged, and our appraisals can be challenged. But usually what happens is the other side, if they don't agree with us, they can get a couple appraisals. We can have a, quote, war of appraisals if we have to, but that usually happens in front of a sheriff's jury, and that's just a group of our fellow citizens that are selected based on partly financial information and experience. Partly, one of them's supposed to be a landowner. As far as the composition of the sheriff's jury, we've had a number of them over the years. People are usually willing to serve on it. It usually is an experience that takes about half a day, and then you basically, whatever the jury says something's worth, unless it's way off the chart, which has never happened in 35 years that I've done eminent domains, you usually just pay the bill. Once you do that, you file that proof of payment and what the eminent domain award was over in the recorder's office. And we basically own it and can start doing things. If the person is unhappy and wants to appeal to district court, they can do that. But if we've paid, we own it. We're already entitled to start using it. And if there's something about the property that somebody wants to try to enjoin us from doing, that's for the district court right up front, usually in the first month. I've never had a district court enjoin an eminent domain, and you'd have to have a pretty dire circumstance to justify that. We tend to bend over backwards to give people their notices and their due process and so forth, and that sometimes it adds delay to these things, but the eminent domain works like that as far as appraisals, possible sheriff's jury, filing in the recorder's office, and we're ready to go. The 657A
Is eminent domain 657B, then is that what you're,
no,
No.
it's
It's
code
just B.
section 6B.
6B?
6B,
Okay.
yeah, it's a whole separate section of the
All
code.
right.
657A, again, what it is, it's a method by which we can take title clear of other liens, other claims, mortgages, etc. But we have to do some super notice. We have to give people an opportunity if they wanted to have a trial in district court. And there's one part of 657A, the section 10, that has about 8 different alternate things that the person who is the owner can ask the court to consider doing. One of them is appraisals, so you almost in that situation end up with a condemnation appraisal war if it happens that way. I've had that happen one time in Van Buren County, but the appraisers down there were pretty close, so it didn't do them much good to have a war of appraisal with us. But if you have 657A and you have the circumstances with an abandoned property, a property that's derelict as far as safety or fire hazard or health reasons, you present your evidence. The difficult part of the 657A is not putting on a case. It's the civil court system itself. You have some startup rules for the first 120 days before you get to have things like what they call a trial setting conference, a discovery plan, and other kinds of disclosures that both sides make. You have like first 120 days has a few procedural steps. Then after that, you have things that happen 60 or 90 days apart. Then you have probably about 12 months out a mandatory trial setting conference. We don't like to have to wait that long. If we've got people pretty much willing to relinquish interests, then we can try to get a default and go forward without the regular trial schedule. But right now, the district court trial schedule, if you have to go to trial, 18 months to 24 months is about the norm on getting a trial date. So that's why we're so, I guess I'm just going to say, I know we're behind on 657As. I sent around a piece of paper a council session ago about one of the cases down on South 4th Street that the main interest in the property is a mortgage holder. Their property management group told us, go ahead, send us a relinquishment form so that our legal department can look it over. We just haven't been able to figure out a way to make this thing pay. We know we're going to lose something. Maybe now's the time to cut and run rather than lose something more by going through the procedures. So sometimes these things work out that way. If not, any place along the way, you might still get it settled. We have another one with Michael Goodman. Michael Goodman, I thought about 10 years ago was a done deal. In fact, he was in front of our council once in 2015, and he had already had 6 or 7 years under his belt as far as his experience up on North B Street and telling us what he was going to do, which he never did. At that point, we had a deposit that he agreed to let us co-sign on out at the credit union, and that money's been sitting there drawing not very good interest, frankly, but at the time that we got some interest on it, it was, you know, it's a little different era. I think interest better at the bank and the credit unions now than it's been for a while, but I mean, it was like 0.25% of interest on 1%. So we didn't make much money on our banked money, which was supposed to help with this project as far as cleanup and improvement. But that house with Michael Goodman now in the course of a 657A, which is about, I think it's 10 months old now since we put him in the civil suit. He's had a phone conversation with our property committee about trying to get this settled. And he says that he can get the property sold. I haven't driven by it this week. I know a week ago, Weston drove by. I don't know if anybody else on the council's had an opportunity to go up on North B Street, but he was supposed to be putting a listing sign out at the property, and he felt he could get it sold himself. I don't believe there's a listing sign out there yet. As of middle of last week, I think, I haven't talked to Weston since then, but at that time, there wasn't any listing sign out, so.
So we
Anyway.
just have one more minute until our council meeting, so I think I'll end there. Our second agenda item, I'll push to the next study session, and so we'll go from there. So we'll take a 1-minute break before we start a council meeting. going to call the meeting to order. Rebecca, will please call the roll.
Ham. Here. Toohill.
Here.
Esti.
Yes.
Flournoy.
Here.
Gandy.
Yes.
Kness.
Yes.
Rowe.
Yes.
Council, any changes to the agenda? If not, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Approval of the minutes of the January 27, 2025 council meeting. Approval of the January 31, 2025 payroll in the amount of $173,664.56. Acceptance of the Public Safety and Transportation Report. Acceptance of the Carnegie Museum Board Minutes. Acceptance of the Library Board Minutes. Acceptance of the Economic Development Committee Minutes of April 22nd, 2024 and August 21st, 2024. Approval of the 2025 mobile home permits. Resolution of seasonal employment in the street department. Approval of liquor license for University BP. Approval of ACH payment to EBS in the amount of $80,080 to $138. That's for employee benefits, insurance premiums. Approval of ACH payment to the Department of Revenue in the amount of $26,257.80. Approval of special claims, WEX in the amount of $2,821.59. And approval of total claims in the amount of $320,544.08. And in those total claims, we did not have any claim over $75,000.
Mayor, I just had a question about the reimbursement of $8,940 to an individual. What that's for?
She bought some the beautification commission bought plantings and stuff
Got it.
for our town. She paid it with her credit card, and then we reimbursed her.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. Any other questions? Not, is there approval to approve the consent agenda?
So moved?
Moved by Gandy,
Second?
second by Kness. Any other additional questions or discussion?
I did review the claims, and they all seemed in order.
Thank you. If there are no other discussion, please call the roll.
Gandy.
Yes.
Kness.
Yes.
Rowe.
Yes.
Esti.
Yes.
Toohill.
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
Flournoy.
Yes.
There are no public appearances tonight, so we'll move on to resolutions, action items, and ordinances. Our first action item is consideration of local option sales tax request in the amount of $15,000 for a downtown Main Street program. I put this back on the agenda. The last time we approved this was before the end of the last fiscal year. At that time, the council did approve $15,000 to support the Main Street application, and we're heading down that road again. So we need to show that on the Main Street application if the city's going to support that. So that's why you have it before you again.
Just to understand, this money wasn't, last year was approved, but we didn't actually spend it.
Correct, we didn't
Right.
use it.
It was contingent upon approval of their application also.
And they're raising a total of $75,000 again for an administrative position.
Yes,
That's what this is for.
yes.
I'd move to approve.
Okay, moved by Kness.
Second.
Second by Gandy. Any other discussion? If not, again, this is approving $15,000 for the downtown Main Street program, assuming we get approved. Okay, please call the roll.
Kness.
Yes.
Gandy.
Yes.
Esti.
Yes.
Rowe.
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
Toohill.
Yes.
Flournoy.
Yes.
The next resolution is consideration of adopting the 2024 Jefferson County Multi-Jurisdictional Hazard Mitigation Plan. So you do see the resolution in front of you. Brett's here if you have any questions. You want to
Can
share
we
any?
get a copy of the plan?
Brett, you want to,
We have one on file. Yeah.
do you want to say anything?
Just how it was prepared. I know it was professionally prepared.
Yeah, you have a copy of the plan. I was sent out to all the cities. So the plan involved, if you remember, I was here last June, getting approval to move ahead. We put out the public surveys, and then we went through the process, and we finally got approved by FEMA. And we had to go through the state first and approved through FEMA. So I have a hard copy to leave here too. I have one of these for every city, but Rebecca's got one on file. So nothing changed since the last time I was here. You guys went through this. The public surveys did come in And there were some things that were recognized that we put in the plan. But basically the mitigation plan, as I said before when I was here, recognizes there's all kinds of mitigation plans in here, recommendations for not just the city of Fairfield, but countywide plus the other cities. And there are goals in there for the next 5 years because the plan's updated every 5 years. The good news about the plan is these aren't set in stone. You don't have to act on them. But when they do say, they do list the possible hazards in the county and they rank them. We always think of tornadoes. This is a funny fact, not a funny fact, but we listed it in our plan as unlikely because it hasn't happened. But there are things like hazmat, material spills that's very likely because of the transportation we have coming through not only Fairfield but the county. So we focus our goals and stuff on what's the very likely stuff. And those are laid out in the back of the plan in detail with recommendations and mitigation action plans. So, one of the things on the hazmat part of it, all your firefighters are trained in hazmat ops. On the Fairfield fire, and you have the technicians in Mount Pleasant, but some of those were just maybe getting more training for the local responders, maybe at technician level, or just more hazmat training than our ops refresher every year. The public also noted that in even these little cities around, that sheltering places in case of a disaster, generators for backing up. It mentions all business continuities inside of Fairfield. Any business that's here, make sure they have a business plan in place in case of a disruption for several days and period of time. And so those are things that I can help with, and those are recognized mitigation actions that are in this plan. And the good news is, since it has been approved by FEMA, and once everybody adopts it, and this also includes all the schools in the district, they've been approving theirs at their board meetings, that we can move forward in the future with possibly getting grants to help put those plans in place and maybe buy some of that equipment, which we didn't have before. So that's why we have this adoption resolution tonight.
Okay.
So just to be clear, FEMA's already approved this plan?
Yes.
Okay. I make a
Yes.
motion that we adopt the hazardous mitigation plan.
I second that.
Okay, moved by Flournoy, second by Esty. Any discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Esti,
Yes.
Craft,
Yes.
Toohill,
Yes.
Ham,
Yes.
Rowe,
Yes.
Gandy.
Yes.
Thank you, that was approved unanimously. Next resolution, consideration of support for the preservation of Maasdam Barns and Evergreen Ridge Stock Farm. Melanie, you want to talk about this a little bit? Why we have this resolution in front of us?
So this resolution is a gesture of goodwill towards Maasdam Barns. We're still working with the county on the annexation process. And that's about all I can say.
The first step.
Yeah, the first step. The things that I've outlined in there, the city's been a good partner with the Maasdam Barns for several years. Ed Malloy mentioned that the city was one of the partners in identifying it as a historic site when the bypass came through, and actually initiated some of those meetings in order to help redirect the bypass away from it. So that's mentioned in here. The house that was on the Civic Center site that got moved to the Maasdam Barns site was actually donated by the city. So we've been a good partner for lots of years, and so this resolution does not tie any future hands of the city, does not guarantee any future lost funds to the Maasdam Barns Preservation Committee. It just states the things that have happened in the past that the city has done, and says that the city council expresses the continued support for continued protection and preservation of the historic nature. The historic nature is important to the city of Fairfield and the city of Fairfield's history. And we endorse the preservation of the Maasdam Barns, its grounds, and the Evergreen Ridge Stock Farm Historic District.
Great, thank you.
And the reason we're doing this is because we probably will end up annexing that property.
We have to. It becomes an island in order to annex the FIA property.
I make a motion to adopt the resolution of support for the Maasdam Barns and the Evergreen Ridge Stock Farm.
Okay, been moved by Flournoy,
Second.
second by Kness. Further discussion?
Is there a foundation associated with that?
I don't believe so. They do have a separate committee. Or I mean, they have a 501c3 because that's how they apply for the.
Most applications.
Yeah, their preservation committee is a registered nonprofit. 'Cause I did look that up. Yeah. I want to make sure I had their name right in the resolution. That's why I write it down.
Okay. Any other questions? No.
Second.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
no.
sorry.
Yeah, we already got
Third.
Sorry.
Roll call vote. We want to make
Yes.
sure we have everyone's full support.
Right,
here.
yeah, so there is a first and a second on the floor, and so please call the roll.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Kness,
Yes.
Gandy,
Yes.
Rowe,
Yes.
Toohill,
Yes.
Ham,
Yes.
Esti.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for that support from Maasdam Barnes. It's a great place to have in Fairfield. Okay, next resolution is consideration for application for the 2025 Iowa Thriving Community Designation. There was Economic Development Committee met last week, and one of the things that came out of that committee, which, sorry, I'm stealing your thunder just a little bit, Paul, but we decided it was important for the council to support the actual application and approving the city to put in the application, because it will be the city who puts in the application. So that's why this is here.
May I add some context, Mayor? This
Yes.
to give part of my Economic Development Committee report now, half of it anyway.
Okay.
So the Economic Development Committee met last Wednesday, February 5th. We had a full house, great attendance. I was there, of course. Terry Kness, our committee member, Connie Boyer, our mayor, Doug Reiner, our city administrator, John Morrissey, city attorney, Melanie Carlson, I like to go through this, Melanie Carlson, our city engineer, public works, Ed Malloy, the executive director of Grow Fairfield, Rachel Hillier, his assistant, Terry Baker, executive director of Fairfield Convention and Visitors Bureau, and Faith Rees, our sustainability coordinator. So one of the items on our two-item agenda was the Iowa Thriving Communities. I wanted to just give some context to the public and to the council this evening, because it's an important designation we seek, and it's one more evidence of the building momentum we have, really, to revitalize or to bring more vitality to Fairfield. So we discussed this Iowa Thriving Communities designation. This is an initiative that's sponsored by the Iowa Economic Development Authority and the Iowa Finance Authority together. And the Grow Fairfield actually reached out to us about the application. The application does have to be in the city's name, but our understanding is, based on the experience of other communities, if you obtain this designation, then you almost immediately attract housing developers and builders to the city. The application is quite substantial. It was released actually today. The application was actually released today, February 10th, and it's due to be submitted by May 17th of this month, this year. We anticipate our goals to have application submitted by the city by the end of March, and so there'll be ample time to complete the application. What it means, I believe, as I understand it, is we're able to offer to builders and developers substantial tax credits that they can immediately use if they developed here, and that's very attractive to developers. So they come to the cities which get that designation. Our chances are excellent. They're looking for smaller towns, some designated as rural communities, which Fairfield qualifies for. We're under 10,000 population, so once we submit the application, our chances are very good in getting approved. So I think it's one of those things that it's interesting, because if we get this designation, it helps to boost our seeking of the Main Street designation, and vice versa, and in other initiatives that we have planned for the city going forward. So I think it's an excellent program. Our chances are very good, and I just want to give that context to the council and the public, and I would move that we approve this resolution.
Great.
I'll second it, but I have a couple questions.
Moved by Gandy, second by Flournoy. Questions?
Is this a competitive application or not?
It is.
And then the tax credits are gonna be at the state level. Does that mean we cannot apply the tax abatements that we apply at the local level?
I didn't understand that to be the case.
No.
So we could do both?
I didn't understand that to be the case. No one spoke about tax abatements when I talked about Iowa Thriving Communities. I haven't heard that there's restriction.
Okay, just so the public knows, the tax breaks are at the state level, not at the city level.
Correct.
Did-
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, did you discuss, I thought Ed Malloy said that we would have to adopt an additional part of the Iowa code regarding housing standards, right, in order to be eligible?
Right. To increase our chances of being approved, being designated, it suggests that we amend the language of one of our resolutions. The resolution is housing, TIF objectives, and policies.
Oh, I thought he was
Yeah.
talking about building code.
Yeah, you were talking about building codes.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think that, as I understand that from our conversation last Wednesday, we're going, I don't think we have to create or pass a new building code, but there may be some additions to what we have in terms of building code in Fairfield. That boost our chances of being designated a thriving community. I don't know if it's required, but if we want to be designated a thriving community, we should.
I think he said it was required.
He
But-
did discuss
but-
that, but I think he thinks there's a little bit of room.
Right. Doesn't have to be building
He thinks
codes.
we'll have a strong application without crossing that T. And I think also, as we go forward, we really want to have that discussion and show that we're working towards that. Yeah.
And I think it was identified that it's sections of it. It's not commercial, industrial, residential building codes. It's very specific to building new homes,
Like,
I think is the code that
Right,
they're
he talked about like
referring to.
energy conservation and different buildings.
my feeling is that if we're going to apply for this, we should make it as strong an application as is possible.
Yeah,
So I
for
would
sure.
encourage that we adopt whatever changes need to be made along those lines.
Just to let you know, and Paul mentioned the housing TIF and policies. It's in a resolution form that the last time was passed in 2020. We are working on that to bring that back to you in the next, probably sometime in March. And that resolution, we're going to expand it a little bit in the sense of it's just not housing TIF and policies, but it's going to be general housing TIF and policies. We'll have legal review it as well, but that will be in a resolution that you will see sometime in March.
And again, we're told, we understand that with those changes, our chances are excellent. That's what we understand them to be. So we want to make those changes, but we don't see them as disruptive or major, but they're going to be useful to attract that designation. And that designation will mean, apparently, according to what the past experience of communities, is going to mean it will immediately become more attractive to the outside builders and developers.
And if we want to improve this housing stock in Fairfield, which we definitely want to do,
We do.
the best way to do that is to implement building codes.
I agree.
And I'll just point out some of the things that we have that Weston is dealing with is because people were not doing things appropriately in a rehab in a house.
Right.
And one in which the house is leaning because the major structural wall was taken out. So it's a problem. So anyway, I don't want to get off topic, but it's a good point, and I think we need to be going down that road. And so we do. Any other questions or discussion points? Okay, we do have a motion and a second to approve the application for 2025 Iowa Thriving Community Designation. So please call the roll.
Gandy,
Yes.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Ham,
Yes.
Rowe,
Yes.
Kness,
Yes.
Esti,
Yes.
Toohill.
Yes.
Thank you, that was approved unanimously. Next resolution, consideration to set public hearing to amend Fairfield's urban revitalization program for Monday, February 24th, 2025 at 7 p.m. And Melanie's going to explain just a little bit what this is about for next meeting.
Okay. So Jason's gonna bring up the application. Most of the changes that are happening with this are a result of state code changes. He's gonna bring up the application. If you have your tablets or have it in front of you, page 14 is the application. Summarizes most of the parts of our tax abatement program. A couple different things that, or I should say the major thing that was changed in state code is the removal of the term multifamily housing. Instead, it is property assessed as residential with 3 separate dwelling units. We have, in the past, the city gave a 10-year 100% tax abatement to, and I'm going to use air quotes, multifamily housing, because it's way easier to say than what's that, in order to encourage multiple houses or larger developments. So other than changing the language, we left that multifamily housing tax credit the same. We also left the commercial and industrial the same, as, which is 100% for 3 years. The only thing that I will say that we changed is the residential. We had our old tax abatement was 3 years, 100% for 3 years of the first 75,000 of actual value added. The law has always allowed up to 5 years. We had 3 years. Why we made the decision of 3 years, I'm not really for sure. The going to 5 years was a request that VITA has made for several years. Looking at our numbers, my count is a little, I don't have the most recent years, but in the last 5 years, 2019 was our most, the highest number of tax abatements we received in residential housing. And that was a whopping 6 residential. And so if you added 2 years onto that $75,000 of tax abatement, that's $2,475 of taxes that we're losing out on. So it means a lot to someone who's trying to flip a house or make ends meet. No, I don't want to say ends meet, but get a deal done on building a house, but it's not going to mean a lot to us. So we're recommending going from that 3 to 5 years.
And it's still up to the 75%.
It's 100% for
100%.
75,000.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's the 5 years, 100%, 75,000 is the max allowed by law then for single family residential.
That's state law.
Yes. Yep.
So we can't adjust it because of inflation and building costs.
Correct. This is adjusting.
But we can't adjust the number of years
Right. Well,
to compensate
Not
for that.
anymore.
not anymore. Right.
We're doing
so, and then that's maybe another reason why we're recommending going from 3 to 5. is
So we should
that's
talk to
the
Jeff
best.
Shifley and Adrian Dickey to get that
We
changed.
have probably a lot of other things we can talk to them about rather than.
Well, then we should have them come in.
I don't know, and then there's other things related to how the application is filed, but as far as for the council, I think that kind of covers the highlights of the 22-page document.
Great, thank you. So again, we are just setting a public hearing for February 24th.
I move to set the public hearing to amend our urban revitalization program for February 24th at 7.
Second.
Okay, moved by Esty, second by Flournoy. Any further discussion or questions? Not, please call the roll.
Esti?
Yes.
Flournoy?
Yes.
Toohill?
Yes.
Gandy?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Kness?
Yes.
Rowe?
Yes.
Okay, so now we are going to have 4 tax abatement applications. So we'll take those one at a time. The first tax abatement application is 506 South 3rd Street.
Mayor, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I see that it appears that the process is for council to approve it or deny it, and then it goes to the assessor. Why wouldn't it go to the assessor first? To qualify it, and then we approve it.
That's the way our program is just written, that we kind of give it, basically just a, I don't even know what to call it.
Or stamp of approval,
stamp
kind of,
of
right?
approval, yeah.
And then they determine whether it fits. Melanie?
I would assume it's a little like if they didn't have utilities or they didn't get a building permit, or if we were having other sort of city issues with
Yeah.
them, we wouldn't approve them. I think we did have someone who hadn't paid their rental bill, and they were using that property as a rental, and so we denied their tax abatement until they paid that. And so, since we don't really deal with the assessment, we kind of make sure that the city end of thing is
Clear.
clear before we pass it on to the county to do the
So
assessment.
should we assume that when it appears on the agenda that they are clear?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
And Melanie, on this one, this first one, it was remodeled into 4 apartments.
that's,
And
temps.
that's okay. I mean, as far as I'm trying to think where that house is located, and I know that there was one other house that was problematic, but we okayed it anyway.
Didn't that go before the Board of Adjustment already?
I'm not, I can't.
Because didn't have enough parking spots for that fourplex, and he also didn't have enough water meters because he hadn't had it approved ahead of time.
That sounds right, but I can't remember because I know that was 3rd and Monroe, if that makes that.
Yeah, I remember the story.
Yep.
That would be 3rd and
Is that
Monroe,
roughly
right?
that address?
Yeah,
Yeah,
506
okay.
South 3rd.
I thought the other one was on South Second. Second and
The other one that,
Jim had. Second and Madison, that was problematic. No?
Well,
Is that my imagination?
this is the problem. People get in there and they start remodeling without talking to the city first, and then they find out later that there are rules that they have to follow that they haven't followed.
Well, that's the thing. They're doing it and then asking for forgiveness later, and we just keep okaying these. It seems. Is that my imagination?
yes and no. I think we have a good Board of Adjustment right now who's had a lot of hard discussions with those property owners. The problem is maybe for lack of a better term, catching these people. This particular one, we only found out about it because he called and asked for 4 water meters. If he had put the utilities into his name and divided it amongst all 4 renters, we wouldn't have known. Until the neighbors called complaining about why there's so many cars. So, we don't have a process, and I think that will be a huge hurdle even with passing the building codes is even with a full-time code compliance officer, we can't drive around town looking at, oh, well, there's someone's construction vehicle. What are you doing? And then are they telling the truth? There's going to be a lot of lessons that need to be learned from contractors if we're going to be enforcing this. So,
I make the motion that we accept the tax abatement application for 506 South 3rd Street.
Okay, moved by Flournoy.
Second.
So is this in an R1 or R2 or?
it's in an R2, but they got the Board of Adjustment approval to have the additional units.
Okay, just wanted to be clear about that. Okay, any other questions?
Well, one of the problems too is if he had done an R2 building there instead of R4, he may not have been able to get a return on his investment, and it would have been worthwhile to do the improvements because he wouldn't have been able to collect enough rent money, for example. So you run into that with people who they get into a hole, right? Remodeling a house, and then they can't rent it for enough money to
But
get a
you're
reasonable
changing-
return on their investment.
But you're also changing the character of the
I
neighborhood.
agree, but it's a problem.
Yeah. Okay, so we do have a motion on the floor to approve this application for 506 South 3rd Street. Any other discussion? Not, please call the roll.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Gandy,
Yes.
Rowe,
Yes.
Toohill,
Yes.
Ham,
Yes.
Kness,
Yes.
Esti,
Yes.
Okay, approved unanimously. The next one is 1306 South Main Street. And this is Tim's Heating and Air. This is for his commercial building that he put up after he had his fire.
I make a motion that we approve the tax abatement application for 1306 South Main Street.
Okay, moved by Flournoy. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Esty. You raised your hand. Any other discussion?
How does this affect what we just discussed a minute ago on the to change the 3-year to 5-year? Is it grandfathered in? Do they?
Nope.
So this will be 3-year.
Yes. This is a business, correct, though?
Yes.
So it's not
It's commercial.
3 year, it'll be a
It's-
10
Yeah,
year.
this will be a 10-year.
10-year.
Oh, it's not.
Or 100% 3 year, I'm sorry, 100%. 100%
Oh.
3 years. That's not changing, though.
This is new construction though, right?
Yes. But that's not changing with the new laws.
Okay.
Any other questions? Not, please call the roll.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Esti,
Yes.
Kness,
Yes.
Toohill,
Yes.
Rowe,
Yes.
Gandy,
Yes.
Ham.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Approved unanimously. Next one is a tax abatement application for 304 West Kirkwood Avenue, Unit 1.
Can you apply just for a single unit?
It's a condo, so yeah, it's a,
Oh, it is. Okay.
oh, yeah.
There's even pictures, so it looks nice.
Make the motion to approve the tax abatement application for 304 West Kirkwood Avenue, Unit 1.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, moved by Flournoy, second by Gandy, to approve the application for 304 West Kirkwood Avenue. Any discussions? Okay, please call the roll.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Gandy,
Yes.
Rowe,
Yes.
Toohill, Esti,
Yes.
Ham. Yes. Kness,
Yes.
Okay, last one, tax abatement application for 801 Highland. Again, this is Alexandra Moreno,
Move to approve the tax abatement application for 801 Highland.
moved by
Second.
Esti, second by Flournoy. Any discussion? Not, please call the roll.
Esti,
Yes.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Rowe,
Yes.
Ham,
Yes.
Kness,
Yes.
Toohill,
Yes.
Gandy.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Can I make a
Yes,
request or comment? Is it possible at the end of the year we could have a summation of how many dollars of tax abatement we approved in the city in their characterization residential or business? And how much taxes we abated?
I will have it with the public hearing next week.
Thank you.
next on our agenda is to open the public hearing on the matter of the annexation of Northridge addition. And then it has the parcels there. So this basically is annexing the reef grain area into the city. And so with that, I will open a public hearing and see if anybody wants to speak to that. Got any important words of wisdom, Martin?
Just that it's the second time around.
Third time's a charm.
So there's been some misunderstandings on how to do with this from my side and from some survey mistakes. And so this has all been through all the different procedures 3 times. And so thank you for your patience.
Yeah,
This
trying to
time I
get it
think
done
we've
the last
got it.
time.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else want to speak to this? If not, I'll close the public hearing. And then the next item is the resolution, the annexation of Northridge additions.
Move to approve annexation of Northridge additions.
Second.
Okay, moved by Gandy, second by Toohill. Any discussion? Not, please call the roll.
Gandy,
Yes.
Toohill,
Yes.
Rowe,
Yes.
Ham,
Yes.
Kness,
Yes.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Esti.
Yes.
Great. Under the mayor's report, I do have 2 appointments. The first one is Jason Ballard for the Park and Recreation Advisory Board. And his application is attached. I do know that he was also recommended by one of our board members there, and also Calvin had a chance to chat with him, and so I would ask your approval of Jason Ballard on the Park and Recreation Advisory Board.
Move to approve Jason Ballard for the Park and Rec Advisory Board.
Second.
Okay, moved by Kness, second by Toohill. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. And then the Convention and Visitors Bureau, Terry Baker requests Paul Strubell. Their board has voted and would like to add Paul Strubell as the city's appointment on to the CVB board. So again, I'd like a motion to approve. Paul?
So moved.
Moved by Esty,
Second.
second by Gandy. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Great, thank you. City Attorney report?
Yes. Something that I think has gone to all of the council members, at least that was my impression from the Tumwa Courier's couple of letters telling you all that we should be looking at our policies and procedures and updating and changing them as far as information they've requested and that we haven't given them. And my reaction to that when I saw the letter was what my favorite old attorney used to say, horse feathers. That is not the law, and that is not the case. And the Ottumwa Courier is trying to backdoor us to get some information that they can't get. And there's a pending case with a pending ruling and a sealed file and a basically gag order on the people involved in the case or having anything to do with it not to talk about it. The Courier knows all that. The Courier sends us a 6-year-old case and a 32-year-old case and says, this is the reason you should change your policies and procedures and give us what we want right now. And I think it's probably too bad they're just impatient, because they will get to find out as soon as the judge rules what some of this amounts to, but they'll probably still have to wait through at least a minimum appeal time, and that'll make them even unhappier. But at this point, Dave spent a couple hours over at my office last week, and Dave spent, I'm sure, twice that much time sorting things as far as what he should or shouldn't do. He's been to the county attorney's office. He's looked at the orders. He gave you guys a summary of his posture, which he's here to talk about tonight. And I'm with him 100% on the position he's taking. So, Dave, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Morrissey. And we want to thank, first of all, the 3 attorneys that were good enough to talk to me all day. I started at the Jefferson County Attorney's Office because it's their case they're prosecuting. I met with County Attorney Chauncey Molding and Assistant County Attorney Elizabeth Esty. They were very helpful. So huge thank you to them. We get a lot of these requests, especially quite often. I'm probably several times a year. So quite often, we explain to them if they want any evidence, they have to get a judge's order, basically, is what it comes down to. And almost every time they're satisfied with that. We take the time, like you saw with the emails that went back and forth, to print the law for them and explain to them that we're the exception until it's all the way through court. And I'm not complaining. We have a right to, we definitely want to answer to the elected officials if there are any questions. I think that's the first time I've had media complain to the council instead of the courts. But we're here to answer any questions. But it was even easier after I talked to the prosecutors that if we hadn't checked with the prosecutors and just released the evidence, as we found out later that day, a judge had ordered it, all evidence sealed like they do every time until they make the A lot of times they won't make a ruling right away, they'll take it under advisement. That's what's going on with another case. And the judge said we have to see all evidence until he makes a decision. But I'm happy to answer any questions you guys might have. I have plenty of free legal advice here if you guys have any legal questions.
Did everybody get a chance to read Dave's memo?
Yes.
Because it's good. And the other thing about our department, our policies and procedures is a Bible. And they look at it every year. They also do a complete review of the Bible every 4 years. Plus, when we get into something where we think we need an update, we do it. You guys in the spring of 2024 basically reviewed and approved procedures and the ways that we handle body camera. And so those are already part of our policies and procedures, and they're good policies.
And they're available
And-
online
yeah.
if you want to look at them.
Right,
too.
exactly. So,
On their website.
from the standpoint of us needing to change them, I don't think so. And as far as the fact that they're current, they're as current as anybody's, in my opinion. And it's thanks to the police department, because they've always kept their manual up consistent with what the current status of the National Law Enforcement Association standards are. So why we would change it, I don't know. But we're just going to have a disagreement with the Courier for a while. I have a lot of respect for the Courier. They have a right to information exchange as it's appropriate to release. But we're not going to get the chief in trouble by doing a dance with them. We'll just basically say, no, not yet. Just be patient. It's coming. And sometimes that's all you can do, and that's why both our prosecutor has discretion and our law enforcement have discretion. So,
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Dave. Appreciate the information here.
Just one quick question.
Yeah.
Are we going to respond officially to the Courier's letter, the editor?
We will be, yeah.
You're going to do that, John? Dave's
Well, I
going to do
think
that?
Dave and I are probably going to put something together to go
Okay.
back to them, but meantime, it's going to be pretty blunt, and it isn't going to talk about anything as far as the factual circumstances, other than in time, you'll know everything that we could tell you when it's appropriate to tell
Yeah.
you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay. What else you got, John?
I want to talk a minute about something that supposedly is going on, if I can pass these around. We did a pretty thorough job back at the time that diversity, equity, and inclusion was a new federal policy. And it's part of our policies that are on the wall and a printout up front for about 20 of them that we renew every year and so forth. But right now, what I understand is that the State Attorney General's office and area prosecutors are supposed to be out looking at businesses to see if they've made changes. And this assumes that government's already made changes, because we don't need the alerts that the area lawyers and assistant attorney generals send to private business. But anyway, there was an article in the Des Moines Register yesterday about DEI threats to Costco. Costco's got 4 big facilities in the state, and apparently they have a posted policy on DEI in those. And anyway, so the Attorney General made a personal point of questioning when Costco was going to change their DEI policies. And to make a long story short, the shareholders and management of Costco voted 98% in opposition to changing any of their DEI policies, and they got some advice from a major employment law litigator in Kansas City, and that's part of the squib that is from what I clipped for you. Basically, the gist of it is there's nothing wrong with having DEI policies. The policies themselves and where you go with them, you still have to respect a Supreme Court case from about a year and a half ago that said affirmative action as it's been understood isn't going to work that way any longer. It's going to be basically non-race-based, non-gender-based. It's going to be merit-based. So merit-based has to be part of your procedures. But what the gist of the squib I gave you is that you can be perfectly okay with DEI policies that give the greatest recognition to the biggest diverse group of people for inclusion. And I think we've done that in this town. But the rest of it is you have to avoid doing situations where you have quotas related to hiring practices, or you have other kinds of standards than merit related to promotions for people in your personnel manual, for instance, and that you stay away from things that brought the affirmative action lawsuits into the face of the U.S. Supreme Court. So I don't have a problem with following the law as far as the U.S. Supreme Court saying that the standards have to be different as far as the idea of inclusiveness than what they used to be, that there just can't be carte blanche extra points for skin color or things like that, if that's what they thought was going on. But I know there were people that were heads of universities and so forth whose heads rolled because the universities reared back and said, wait a minute, we like our diversity and equity policies, and pretty soon the boards were firing them. I don't think we've got a diversity and equity policy that isn't pretty much like what the Attorney General's office themselves uses in their hiring practices. And I think if we look at what we put on anything when we advertise a job in the paper, it's right there in the bottom of this squib. And that is that City of Fairfield is an equal employment opportunity, affirmative action employer. All qualified individuals are encouraged to apply. That is non-gender, non-race, other kinds of specialized characteristics defining, but at the same time, our policies as far as including everybody, my recall is that we had two dozen speakers probably here talking at one time about what we should do to be more inclusive and so forth. The mayor had a committee set up just to weigh in on this. And right now, I don't think that the policies we have run afield of where we are anyway with the law. So I don't know what your sentiments are on it, but I expect we'll get a letter from somebody wanting to know what we've done to make any changes in our policies. And I don't have a reason to recommend that you change your policies.
And
Maybe some
John,
of you
I
have a
just might
different
say
opinion.
that when that group was organized, which it's not now,
Yeah.
they did look at our personnel handbook, did not make any new recommendations at that time, as I recall.
Yeah, I think you've got a really
So,
well-balanced handbook. You
Yeah.
already are an equal employment opportunity employer. So
Yeah.
I'm agreeing with this basically. And
Okay.
other than that, I'd like to tell you that we've got something new on some of our nuisance situations, but other than not seeing a listing sign in front of Mr. Goodman's 657A, and having a couple other houses that we're going to be having discussion with our magistrate about orders allowing us to start the process of demolition over on South D Street, and there's one other Weston has that I think he believes we're in a position we could already do something about up on North 4th Street.
John, what's the status of the North Court commercial
The
buildings?
55, 57.
Yes, where are we at with that? It was in October when we said, yes, the council voted to go down 657A, so where are we at with that property?
We
That's
had
the empty building, the old J.C. Penney building.
Yes.
correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
That, we had a meeting with the Mary Welch. The court talked to her for probably a half hour about things that she said she could get done in 3 months. It hasn't happened. The last time that she was up to court to ask for some time, she was in a wheelchair. I don't doubt that she
What was
needs
the
to be in a
time frame of that,
wheelchair.
John?
It would have been, I believe, right before Christmas, right after I got back from
Okay,
tag school.
thank you.
But it's, the time's up. At this point, the building itself, I don't know what's going on over there now. Weston and I have talked about it multiple times. Somebody's in it sometimes, and if they were trying to do something as far as improving walls and doing something about some bad wiring, that would be where I think the lights have been on at night. But other than that, the building itself and some of the things that maybe she's attempting off of our list of 16 things, it's not getting fixed.
Okay.
So at this point, it's, the other thing about the 657A, and Weston and I had a discussion about this too, is the abandoned status of the building. She's never abandoned it. We made her abandon it. So we may have that thrown in our face at some point as far as claiming that it's that status because of her. But the problem is constructive abandonment is another concept in the nuisance law.
So what's the next step?
657A, service on her. We have I think I've told you before in one of these sessions that we have a problem with something that may affect title that she's talked to us about in court a couple times, and that is that she has a backer who has a note but doesn't have it filed as a mortgage. And that ended up in discussions a couple times with other people who would like to buy it from her. And I believe that she has that as a kind of a back pocket weapon to tell people about, to intimidate them somewhat, because that kind of a situation, if it's a race to the courthouse to record your mortgage and create a lien versus somebody like us that's going to the courthouse to stop all liens, and just take the property, we're going to have to probably do kind of a special notice or have a hearing just for that person that supposedly holds her note. And we don't have any way of getting that information except her conversations is what it amounts to. So we're going to go ahead anyway.
So the next step is to serve her with some paper?
Serve her with a 657A petition like we've done on some of these others.
Okay.
At which point, if she throws some things up in our face as far as this, what I call invisible paper right now,
Yeah.
if it's not recorded at the courthouse, it's not
Okay,
official.
so we don't have to go back to court in order to do that. You can do that
No,
right away.
We're already through the court process as far as the misdemeanor violations and the civil infraction part of this. We've got orders from the court to do different things over there.
Okay.
But they don't give us the title to the property ultimately. 657A would do that. But at the same time, I mean, if she'd show up with a buyer that would say, we're gonna fix it over. We can do it, here's our plan. They'd be having a meeting with Weston in the morning, I promise you that. But,
Okay. So we'll, I mean, I guess if you could keep us updated. You know.
Estimate, what kind of time frame are we still looking at?
Well, it's like every other civil suit that you go to district court on. We serve her the paperwork. The people that we know that have an interest in it, there's about a half a dozen of them that you include in the caption as far as other people to get notice. That all happens in a period of 30 to 60 days, depending if
Right.
some of them are corporations or not. After that first 30 to 60-day notice period, it starts, the next period I described to you earlier is about 120 days. During that time, the court administrator sets you up for some things that are part of the rules of civil procedure. And after you get through that time period, you should have a discovery plan in place, and then you have a trial setting date. And at that point, you have a pretty good idea when you're going to get to court for a trial. But that could be, like right now, it's running 12 to 18 months out just because civil court, district court is backed up.
So look,
and
you're
we're just people in line. So, yeah,
year and a half to 2 years.
could be that long, yeah. A lot of these, you get some activity going on midstream. I'm sure that there are other people right now trying to put together a package to convince her that they should listen, or that she should listen to them and that they're the right buyer, but that hasn't happened yet.
Okay. Okay, let's move on to committee and board reports. Economic Development Committee?
Thank you, Mayor. So we gave the first half of our report when we were discussing the Iowa Thriving Communities application. Just to note that we are promised, or we are encouraging the city, and we're planning on working with the rest of the council to prepare an application for the Iowa Thriving Committee designation by the end of March, so we can bring it back to the full council for review and approval and submit it in time for the process, which would be May 17th is when it's due. The second item on our agenda for that meeting, for our Economic Development Committee meeting last Wednesday, had to do with an update on the two-way restoration. If you recall, just to give context to the council, the committee had in August, had a meeting, and the council had approved our recommendation to authorize Melanie, our city engineer and public works director, to begin the process of planning and costing possible two-way restoration of the downtown Fairfield streets. Since that time, of course, we've had the Main Street, Iowa assessment, if you recall. That was in November, and they just, the end of, this is January, so this is February. So the end of January, they had another meeting where they discussed financial incentives for revitalizing our downtown. One of the, and then part of their assessment, they suggested to us that one of the things we want to seriously look at is some restoration of two-way status. So we took that as a further indication that we need to revisit that particular possibility and get an update from our city engineer. Melanie presented a report. She's done quite a bit of work, as other staff members have, and it turns out that actually, while two-way restoration is of some interest, it's more in terms of a safety project that we want to look at. We want to look at, and I think it's better from going forward, I think it's more accurate to call it a safety project, particularly for Main Street. And I'd like Melanie, there's some attachments to the Economic Development Committee report. Melanie could speak to that and what we're talking about there.
So Public Safety and Transportation Committee had asked for me to look at adding crosswalks to the corners at Main and Burlington. There's been a lot of other issues that have just come up on Burlington in general. There's the mid-block crossing between Main and Court. We've had the TEEP study that says the traffic signal at Main and Court is not warranted or it's not justified. The capital improvements plan says that the traffic lights need to be replaced soon, or the one at Court needs to be taken down before it falls down. And so, and then we had the study about bike lanes. And so with that in mind, I worked on a proposal, real rough proposal, and I will say I have not discussed this with DOT. So this was just put together to get an idea to get a cost estimate. What this did was put in bike lanes, and we call them nodes. They call the official name is something different, and I can't come up with it right now. But it would include putting bike lanes and then nodes at the corners to protect those pedestrians as well as the bikes. Then it would also add corner crosswalks at Main and Court, and then include restriping the rest of the downtown. A little bit of node adjustment in the rest of the downtown, but no major curb adjustments. The downtown assessment did recommend extending the Central Park out to actually go down to 2 lanes of traffic rather than the 3 lanes of traffic. This project really just does the restriping, or does the 2-way with restriping, more or less. And so with this concept, I'll say the overall project cost with the 2-way restoration, improvements at Main and Burlington, a new traffic signal at Main and Burlington, all of the concrete bike lanes from B to 2nd is $1 million. With that, though, I sat down with Marcus from French Reniker, and we identified at least $500,000, possibly a few other an additional 200,000, maybe even more, of eligible DOT funds, because that section of Burlington from Main to 2nd is eligible for a lot of different funding sources. Not to mention then any other safety improvements that we do from Main to B would have some funding sources as well. So that's where I kind of came at this is, yes, we're talking about the downtown restoration and it has an economic benefit, but there's a lot of safety improvements that we've been talking about for years. And if we can apply for some DOT funds to take care of things, at least at the intersections, then that makes the striping. Like, we really just have to raise money for the match for the grant and the striping of the 2-way, of the restoration. The changing of the signals and the crosswalks and all of that becomes part of the safety initiative, not the 2-way restoration. And the other thing, though, and again, Marcus and I were talking about, is this area was always going to be the transition for redoing Burlington in the future. You know, we've got residential going towards the east and more commercial areas going towards the west. And so whether it's reconstructing Burlington or overlaying Burlington, this is a good breaking point. So if we do a project or start applying for grants, because a lot of DOT cycles are 5-year cycles, so we can apply, we can, start to put it, going from 2nd to 12th on a 5-year plan. And because we now have a starting point, we can say we're going to go from 2nd to 12th, and we've started this kind of, I want to say, elephant that we haven't really known how to start, because Burlington is going to be a big elephant that we have to figure out how to take care of. And this kind of sets us up as well as taking care of those economic issues that we've discussed with the downtown. So I think I'll let you then talk about the recommendation from the committee or the request.
Right, the recommendation the recommendation to the council from the committee is that we be given permission to pursue funding we'll start with funding for an assessment or a study, an engineering study or assessment. We're not sure exactly what the cost will be at the moment, but we want to pursue, maybe get a quote on what it might cost and bring that back to the council. So we want to take this step by step. We want to move on because apparently there are significant grants possibly available to us, and we certainly want to reach out to them. And I think applications for some of them are as soon as this summer.
August. So one of the largest safety grants is through the DOT is August 15th. But again, as I was talking to Marcus today, is if this was approved, our first thing would be we would sit down with the DOT. I had already reached out to the DOT after the pedestrian incident last fall. They're aware that this is on our radar. They're aware that the public safety had asked about looking into the crosswalks. And I think then we follow up with a meeting of like, we're serious about moving to something else. Let's get your engineers, our engineers, and start talking about what design are you guys gonna be okay with, and how can you help us fund this? Because the more we have the district engineers on board with this, that's going to help our applications as well. So as soon as that if you guys approve or we wait to go through the budget process, then we can start those meetings.
So the recommendation is that, again, I don't think we're asking for funding, but we're asking for support from the council to allow Melanie to proceed with discussing with DOT, engineers, and others about an assessment of the cost of this, a finer assessment, I think, about the cost that's going forward. Because we do anticipate, with this motion approved, possibly coming back with then we may request something from the council with a possible idea of getting an application in for a grant. So the motion is just we want council support to Melanie to continue with the process of assessing the cost.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
I would second that.
Okay, moved by Gandy, second by Ham to move forward this process. Any discussion?
I have a couple questions. Do you want to put a bike lane on either side of Burlington?
Yes.
And
Yep.
there'll be a physical barrier between the bike lane and the traffic?
So the only area that there would be a physical barrier would be on Burlington between Main and Second because of the higher volume of traffic.
Okay.
Everywhere else it would be a double white line.
And the parking on south of the square on Burlington would be parallel, not
Yes,
angled?
correct.
Then my question is, if a bicycle's coming down a bike lane and a car is making a right-hand turn, who has the right of way?
Leave the bicycle, but and I think that's what that graphic there shows. And that's where the DOT input, as well as the engineers that are much more read up on the spacing and how far everything needs to be from the visibility and separation and all of that, where I need their input. My layout was very cursory, kind of does it fit? And then they can help me with the details of, we need 6.5 feet from the driving lane to the bike lane, and they can be more specific on that as we dig into it.
I'm worried about accidents with the bicycles.
Well, you can't just not obey traffic laws, though, either.
No, I agree. I'm
you know-
just curious as to what the rule is.
The bicycles have the right of way, like in Iowa City where there's bike lanes all through it. It's set up that way where it's a white line, and the bicycles do have the right of way. In areas of Des Moines, down around the village and stuff like that, it's all done that same way too. So that's the rule of thumb through the state, I'm sure, everywhere.
Also, if pedestrians are crossing and somebody's trying to turn right, the pedestrian has the right of way, so imagine it's the same, like somebody
Yep.
going straight.
And it does take some getting used to because you're not used to looking in your right rearview mirror when you're turning right.
Right, a lot of cars have those cameras on the right-hand side also.
Okay. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Okay, that motion is approved. That all? Paul?
Awesome. Yes, that concludes the Ec Development
Okay.
Committee report.
City Administrator report?
Well, since we have passed the waste management contract, we will now be doing data collection. So we are formulating the surveys and flyers so that we can get that out to the public. We have a list of all over 5,000 property owners. I don't have that number in front of me. And we started the spreadsheet, and then once we send that survey out, what will end up happening is they will have the opportunity to decide whether they have a 65 or a 96 gallon trash can, and if they don't respond, they will get a 96 gallon trash can as the council proposed. But that information is being gathered now. It's going to take a while for us to get everything together because they have to keep track of that up front, and we're trying to not only do our jobs, but then the ladies up front being overwhelmed by collecting this data and then sending it out to waste management. So they've got a lot of work ahead of them. Budget season, we are still cranking it out. We've still got a ways to go, but we should have books ready soon, and we'll get that to the Ways and Means.
Can you Doug, can you speak to what deadlines we have approaching with regard to budget?
I believe we're going to get books gathered this week, and then we will be setting up Ways and Means next week, if that's okay. So we are still working on numbers, trying to get things to fit, and you know, it's a tough budget year. Go ahead.
What does the state require from us in terms of?
I'm sorry. I thought that there was a schedule that we had sent out.
I think
Maybe we
probably
didn't
did.
do that. But I can, if not, I will send it out again. Or I'll send it out if I haven't sent it out. But we have a timeline, and we have not met those benchmarks. But for the state, we're still good, correct? So, but it's just getting this cursory review of Ways and Means and getting their input, gathering that stuff, and sending it out, because there's a lot of things that we had to cut out of the budget, and we'll set those up for you side by side, that the Ways and Means can decide what we're doing, what we're not doing, and then we'll move it on to the next level. But we're still within the time frames for turning everything into the state. Yeah. So, but we are working on that, and I'll send out an email this week, keep everybody apprised of what we're doing. Let's see. Code enforcement has actually given me 2 properties that I did stick into the budget report, and I actually got a phone call, Weston, I got a phone call today in regards to another property. So 802.5 North 8th Street has been on the council's radar probably for a decade, and we are not moving forward, not getting in compliance with this particular property, and Weston has recommended that it goes to property committee for review for 657A. He's recommended demolition, but we need to do something with that property. The next one is 801 South 5th Street. This owner does not live there anymore. They're in a long-term care facility, but there is actually discussions with the bank, and the property owner is talking. I don't know the dynamics of this property owner. They no longer live in this residence. I believe the house has been empty for quite some time, and we also need to consider taking that property to either have it demolished or have it rehabilitated and move that on, but the property owner is not capable of doing that. Then the last one, the property owner actually called us at 805 North Main Street, and they would like to avoid going through the 657A procedures and all the court hearings and all of the things. They would just like to turn that property over to us, and then have the property committee decide what they would like to do with this property, whether it's can be rehabbed, whether it needs to be demolished, whether we need to sell it, whatever that may look like. This property is not in good shape, but the property owner said, I don't have the time, the means, or the funds to handle it. I would just like to give it to the cities to avoid any sort of issues with code enforcement and our codes. And then lastly, I would like to, the last thing I have that I would like to read to council, Melanie and I attended the Concrete Paving Association annual conference in Des Moines last week. We only attended part of one day, but the highlighted of the 3-day event is typically the presentation of the paving awards.
I bet it was solid.
The Iowa Concrete Paving Association, the ICPA, and the Iowa Department of Transportation, the DOT, jointly evaluated and recognized projects as 2024's best concrete pavements built in 2022 or 22 categories. In determining the winners of Iowa's most prestigious paving awards, nominated projects were rated on smoothness, quality, control, general appearance, as well as workmanship, contractor management, safety, and project complexity. The Highway 1 project, the Highway 1 project received the award of Best State Road of 2024. The city, along with Wix, the general contractor, Dresch Construction, local subcontractor, Shive Hattery, design engineer, and Ideal Ready Mix, the local concrete supplier, and Iowa DOT were all recognized as team members. It took teamwork to do a big project like the roundabout. Projects like this, and not all low bid projects get local contractors and suppliers. So this is a great honor. Melanie is keeping the award, and you will have to pry it out of her cold, dead fingers. This was the first project that I interacted with. I am very, very proud of all of the people that were involved in this, especially Melanie. She held her composure in moments of crisis, and I actually got to see her at work first thing, and I'm extremely proud of the work that has been done with the roundabout and all of the, I don't want to say propaganda, but all of the information that was sent out about the roundabout. I think everybody's using it the way it should be used. Nobody's driven through the middle of it. But there were several, we've got several plaques, and then Melanie got a personalized one. But none of this could have been done without Melanie's help, and I appreciate that very much. And
I can't help it. I hope this award paves the way to greater success.
So that is all I have. But
All right.
well done, Melanie
Good
Carlson.
job, you guys.
So Mel, before you move on, let's take a couple motions here. I'd like someone to move the 802.5 North 8th and 801 South 5th. Move those two properties to property committee to look at the 657A process.
Should we include the North Main Street address?
I want that on second, on different motion, because it's a little different.
Oh,
Okay,
I'll second Tom's motion.
okay. Moved by Toohill, second by Flournoy.
Can I make a comment about the one, if like, this is just county treasurer days, right? So like if Medicaid is involved because she's in a home, they sometimes get her house, right? If, so I would just caution taking it and, I would
Yes.
just caution the
I'd wondered
steps
that
taken.
myself, but,
Yeah.
and I didn't pry.
Mm-hmm.
So this is just the discussion
Yep.
phase, because
Yep.
I kind of wondered, but but Weston has been speaking. I don't know if he's been speaking with the owner, but I don't know who he's been speaking with. But there's like a guardian ad litem and
Yeah.
all sorts of stuff.
Okay.
So anyway,
I just wanted to make sure that was on the radar.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So this motion, again, has to do with 802.5 North 8th and 801 South 5th. moving to 657A process. So we'll move that to the property committee. Go ahead and call the roll.
Toohill,
Yes.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Kness,
Yes.
Rowe,
Yes.
Gandy,
Yes.
Esti,
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
And then I'd like to entertain a motion for 805 North Main Street and have property committee look at the possible turning over that property to the city.
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
Toohill, second by Flournoy. Any more discussion on that? Go ahead and call the roll.
Toohill,
Yes.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Ham,
Yes.
Esti,
Yes.
Gandy,
Yes.
Kness,
Yes.
Rowe.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Okay, now,
Board of Adjustment, just an FYI, there's no action for the council, but 51 East Broadway, the housing development that's happening in the downtown, did get all of its approvals to legally exist there. So there is no action items for the council on that, but good to know that that box is now checked.
So again, the question, rhetorical question is, why didn't they do all that before they started putting the money into it?
Okay. So planning and zoning then
we
do
don't
not
have any-
have very many action items.
Yeah, why not?
If I had a solution to that, Doug, I would be
People know they can
working
do
a
it. They know they
different
can do it.
job, like playing in Vegas or
So
something.
how do we
like that.
communicate with these people?
So, the planning and zoning commission didn't have a lot of action items, nothing for the council to act on or review. Just letting you know that, planning and zoning staff, as well as the commission, is, working very hard at the FIDA annexation, the review of the FIDA preliminary plat, as well as discussing a conservation zone or revisions to a conservation zone that would be suitable for perhaps the Maasdam barns or the county park property that needs to be annexed as well. It could also apply to some city parks that have, such as Lamson or other areas that are more of a conservation zone. And so, again, staff and the commission are working on trying to move that forward. So, no action on them. They have some questions and some follow-ups. And again, they were more looking at preliminary stuff at this point. So we'll keep working on getting that done. Hopefully it won't take 3 tries like Martin Brett's, but we'll get it done.
great, thank you. Alrighty, nothing else, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Oh, we gotta fight. Moved by Toohill, second by Esti. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Meeting adjourned.
You always make that